Hello, I'm Olivia Hibbie, and today we are going to be talking about we're going to be talking about Crying at H-mart by Michelle Zauner. So, basically, this is a memoir. I guess they're saying it's a coming of age. I feel like it's a memoir just about a particular time in her life because we spend so little of the book of her like growing up. We spend probably like 40 pages, and then the rest of it is just her being a grown ass woman and dealing with the loss of her mother. And her identity and her with her being biracial, her being half white, half Korean, and the struggle of trying that I a lot of biracial people seem to have is like not feeling like they belong to either sphere, no matter whether they're white and black, whether they're white and whatever else. They just don't feel like they fit into one space or the other because a lot of the time when you see biracial people, they don't really look like one group of people. They just look like a biracial person. They look like a mixture of the two um, ethnicities that came together to create them, or the two races, if you will, that came together to create them. You know what I mean? They don't look like, you don't just look at them and go, up, you're white, or up, you're black, or up, you're, I mean, sometimes I guess, for the most part, a lot of times people look at biracial black people and they're like, up, they're black. And that's just not the case because they're biracial. And so this talks about identity, this talks about food, this talks about culture, this talks about family, death, hardship, dealing with death, grief. So lots of things happening in this book, but and still it didn't raise any sort of emotion out of me because I felt like, and look, and it does say it's a memoir, because in reading this, it just feels like Michelle Zauner speaks about her mother in such an in such a detached way. I feel like she spoke about her mother in a way that seemed as if her mother only really had importance in being her mother, and that's it. The only identity she had was being her mother. And then in the same breath, she would like underhand the fact that her mother was just kind of a stay at home traditional wife, even though that's probably the most important job a woman could ever have is taking care of her home. But I digress. And you know what? I started out liking this book, but then as I went on, I just discovered that, you know what? Me and Michelle's honor, we would not be friends. We just would not be friends. Let's hold on one second. Yeah, I'm back. So I just kind of discovered in reading this that Michelle Zauner and I, we would just not be friends. She seemed very selfish, very self-centered, just very like, why me? And also just me, and me again, and how things affected her. And there's just a lot of things in this book and the way that she wrote them that just didn't really sit well with me. Just didn't sit well with me at all. And that was why I ended up DNFing it. I ended up um DNFing at like 280 something. Yeah, I ended up DNFing at like 280 or 290 something. In the book, the large print version is about 390 some pages. So I only had about 100 pages left. And I just could not stomach it anymore. And I realized that this is, a sad story and one that I could relate to. My mother passed away um 2, 3, maybe even 4 years ago at this point. And even though, and at the same time, I had a difficult relationship with my mother as well. But, at the same time, having that understanding and having that empathy, I felt nothing for her just because she was so selfish. And because of a lot of the things that she would do, and she was only doing them to serve herself ultimately, not not to help her mother, not to be there for her mother. That was secondary. What was first was serving herself, and and stroking her own ego and making herself feel better about the situation when her mother is literally dying of cancer. Like, uh, I just, when it got to a certain point in the novel, or in, not in the novel, or in the memoir, I was just like, no. And I just kept feeling this nasty, like, ick, and this dislike for her as a person that I just could not shake. And, when you're reading, I find it a little bit strange to rate somebody's memoir, but I guess maybe it's not, because you could be just rating their writing style, you know, not the story itself. But for this one, I had no qualms about giving it 1 star. No qualms at all. I just felt like, and it was solely because I'm really, it was solely because I'm just judging the author. Like, in the writing sometimes it felt a little pretentious, but the writing was very easy to follow. It was not hard to read at all. I was flying through it as I read it. 100 pages, easy. It was just that I just harbored a very deep bias and a very deep dislike for the author herself. And I just couldn't continue going because I'm reading a book about the author. And once her mother passed away, it was just like, okay, well, now it's just her, you know, and, I just couldn't continue with it. And so that's why Crying in H-Mart was a 1 star read for me. So yeah, that's gonna bring us to the end of the video. Um, I hope you have a good day. I hope you have a good evening. And most importantly, I hope you read a good book. And I'll see you when I see you. Bye.